Palantir Technologies, a company founded in 2003 by Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, recently purchased around $51 million of 100-ounce gold bars. And this came as a big surprise to many people. And this was broadly seen as Palantir prepping for what they see as an upcoming Black Swan event. Now, Black Swan events are by definition something that cannot be predicted or are extremely unlikely, but this nevertheless does point to at least the high likelihood in the opinion of Palantir and its top officials that upcoming Black Swan events are going to be more likely. And I think we can all kind of agree with this in some way, shape, or form, even though we don't have anywhere near the level of knowledge that Palantir does. And it is a bit scary that Palantir is positioning themselves in this way, simply because Palantir as a company has access to probably more data than any other company in the world, just with regards to how much data they have, and also just with how broad it is. They have access to more data likely than even some governmental programs that are out there. So this just goes to show how Palantir and its executives do see an upcoming Black Swan event as being very likely. So I'll just go into an article which briefly discusses the purchase Palantir just made, and then I will go into some of the events that I think they could be seeing as likely. And this is obviously just broad brush speaking on my account. I obviously have no idea which of these Palantir sees as most likely or which of these actually do end up happening. I obviously do not know what the future holds, but I just am going to give my thoughts at the end as to what they are likely seeing based off of their purchase of gold. Palantir's second quarter earnings were well received by Wall Street. The company topped analyst expectations for the bottom line by reporting adjusted earnings per share of 4 cents and significantly beat top line estimates of $353 million by booking $375 million in sales. Palantir is clearly executing its land and expand strategy, winning clients, then deepening its relationships by adding services, growing revenue by 49% over the prior year, and winning 20 net new customers. The company also impressed by reporting $23 million in cash flow from operations, the second consecutive quarter of posting positive cash flows. For that reason, the disclosure that it bought $50 million in gold bars in August seems to be an odd choice for a high-growth company, and this is a very odd choice. You don't see any other companies like Palantir doing this, and it's probably because Palantir has access to a lot of data that these companies do not. The gold purchase was made in the form of 100-ounce gold bars, which will initially be kept in a secure third-party facility located in the northeastern United States, according to the filing. Palantir Gotham, one of the company's artificial intelligence platforms, is used by counterterrorism analysts at offices in the United States intelligence community and United States Department of Defense, according to Palantir. Gotham compiles and analyzes large amounts of information using AI algorithms to help organizations, including the U.S. military, make data-driven decisions. I think it is interesting that a firm that reportedly has close ties to the U.S. defense and intelligence establishments is buying gold, especially since it is reportedly being bought to hedge Black Swan events, said Luke Roman, founder of Forest for the Trees. We'll have to see if there's anything more to it than that. And so a brief definition of a Black Swan event is it's just an unpredictable event that is beyond what is normally expected of a situation and has potentially severe consequences. Now, obviously, I have no way of knowing what exactly Palantir is referring to when they say that they see a Black Swan event or plural Black Swan events coming up, but I would point out that the one most obvious thing out there that most people can see is inflation. And I'm not talking about inflation in terms of the inflation that we've had in the last 30 to 40 years. I'm actually talking about inflation that gets out of control, that affects everybody, that sends costs of living up dramatically, such as during the 1970s and early 80s. I'm talking about that kind of inflation that essentially forces the Federal Reserve and central banks around the world to do tightening like, nobody's business. They would not be talking about tapering. They would essentially be going to war with inflation. Paul Volcker, who was the Fed chair back in the early 80s, when he was put in there to fight this runaway inflation, he essentially let interest rates go where the market would take them. So he did not focus on rates whatsoever, and interest rates went roughly up to 20% at their peak. And he obviously did not care where interest rates went, and he also focused on quantitative tightening. So essentially, Volcker's motto was, we'll let rates go where they will go, we'll let the market take them where they will, but we will tighten, we will focus on the money side of the equation. And so this is obviously the exact opposite motto that the Fed has now, of just, endless quantitative easing, endless rate suppression, endless whatever. And so this, I believe, is an extremely difficult situation that the Fed has put themselves into, of now, if when inflation gets out of control, this could be a game changer for the Fed, in that they would have to completely reverse their strategy. They would have to go back to what Volcker did, of letting rates go where they would go, and not only that, but tightening immensely from where they are right now. So this could be, I'm not saying this is what Palantir sees as the kind of upcoming black swan event, but this would be a major event for the equity markets. This would put a massive, just a massive cap on the stock market valuations, because as can be seen with the Buffett indicator, since roughly 1980, when interest rates began coming down from about 20%, now they're roughly at zero. Ever since roughly 1980, PE valuations and the valuation of the stock market as a whole has been allowed to increase dramatically, to where now we have a Buffett indicator that's at an all-time high, and much higher than even the dot-com bubble. So this just illustrates how much interest rates affect the valuation that the stock market can reach, and also potentially what Palantir sees as an upcoming black swan event with regards to runaway inflation, and more so the response that the Federal Reserve would have to that inflation. They would have to go to war against inflation. They could not do some simple, talking about tapering or anything like that. Now, Palantir may also have information regarding the severe global unrest right now in Afghanistan. They might have information regarding John McAfee and his supposed dead man switch when he was eliminated this last summer. So anyway, this is not to be taken as me predicting what Palantir is seeing as a black swan event, or me attempting to predict what will end up crashing the markets. But I just do see as inflation as likely the event that they're referring to when they are referring to black swan event. So all of this being said, I'm not trying to predict what Palantir is seeing as an upcoming black swan event, which they are hedging with physical gold. They're also not purchasing just a gold ETFs. They're actually going with physical gold, which does strike me as well. But all this being said, if you guys like this content, just consider subscribing to this channel, as this is what I typically talk about, and I hope to see you again at some point.